What if you suddenly lost everything and had no one by your side? That question hovered over the small courtroom in Cedarville as Judge Thompson, a stern man in his 60s, leaned back in his chair and scoffed at the young black teenager standing nervously at the witness stand. Marcus Jefferson, barely 17, felt the weight of every mocking word that dripped from the judge's lips like acid. "Son, I don't think you belong in my courtroom. Maybe school would suit you better," Judge Thompson sneered, his voice carrying the condescension of a man convinced of his own superiority. The courtroom fell into a hushed silence, but the tension was thick enough to choke on. Marcus's jaw tightened, but he refused to let tears betray his anger. This wasn't the first time he had faced this kind of prejudice, but today it stung sharper, cut deeper. What made it worse was the place, a courtroom, a supposed temple of justice, where fairness was meant to reign. But today, Marcus was just another stereotype to be dismissed. The judge's words hung in the air, but something inside Marcus shifted. Instead of retreating, he squared his shoulders, ready to prove that he was more than the narrow judgments cast upon him. He was not just a scared kid. He was someone with a fierce fire burning in his heart, a desire for justice stronger than the judge's ignorance. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Marcus's story begins here, at this unexpected crossroads, where a cruel mockery could have been the end, but instead became the spark for a remarkable journey. In this moment, as he stepped down from the witness stand, the courtroom eyes bore down on him, some filled with pity, others with disdain. But Marcus held a quiet defiance that no one could see at first glance. His mind was racing. Not with fear, but with plans. This was just the beginning. Marcus Jefferson had been through enough to know that life rarely played fair, especially for a black kid growing up in Cedarville. But that only made his resolve stronger. What if the boy they mocked today was the one who would one day change the very system that sought to keep him down? That question, unanswered and heavy, marked the start of a story about courage, resilience, and the fight for dignity in a world that too often denied it. As Marcus walked out of the courtroom, the cold air hit his face, a stark contrast to the warmth of the packed room behind him. He glanced back once, eyes locking briefly with Judge Thompson's, who barely spared a glance. But Marcus saw more than disdain in those eyes, he saw underestimation. And Marcus knew better than anyone that underestimating him was the judge's biggest mistake. This wasn't just a courtroom drama, it was a battle for respect, for identity, and for a future where justice might finally be blind. The story of Marcus Jefferson was just beginning, and it would prove that sometimes the most unexpected heroes come from the harshest places. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? For Marcus, it was the memory of his mother's steady hands and his sister's hopeful smile. It was the fire to rewrite the rules written by those who didn't believe in him. And it was the unshakable belief that he was meant for more than the judge's cruel jokes and the world's harsh judgments. The courtroom incident, harsh and raw, was the seed of something powerful. And as Marcus stepped into the next chapter of his life, the question remained, what would you do if everything was stacked against you, and the world made it clear you weren't welcome? For Marcus Jefferson, the answer was simple: fight, learn, grow, and never back down. This is his story. Marcus Jefferson's story began long before the courtroom humiliation. Born and raised in the working-class neighborhood of Cedarville, Marcus grew up in a small, cramped apartment with his mother, Lisa, and younger sister, Emily. Lisa Jefferson was a strong woman who had raised her children alone since Marcus was 8. She worked 2 jobs, day shifts as a nurse's aide at the local hospital and evening shifts cleaning offices, to keep food on the table and the lights on. Despite the hardships, Lisa always insisted on the importance of education and integrity, values she passed down to her son with unwavering faith. Marcus remembered his childhood as a mix of warmth and struggle. He and Emily shared a close bond. She was 7 years younger, full of energy and laughter, and her smile was a balm on the toughest days. But growing up black in Cedarville was not easy. The neighborhood was plagued by poverty and racial tensions, and Marcus often found himself the target of subtle and not-so-subtle discrimination. One memory stood out sharply in his mind, a day when he was just 10 years old, playing basketball with neighborhood kids. A group of white teenagers approached and, without warning, started hurling racial slurs. Marcus tried to ignore it, but when he turned to face them, one of the boys shoved him roughly to the ground. His mother's voice echoed in his head that night, "You're better than what they say, Marcus. Don't ever forget that." That moment planted the first seed of resilience in him. He learned early that the world wasn't fair, but that didn't mean he had to accept it. At school, Marcus was a bright student, his sharp mind and quick wit standing out to teachers and peers alike. But his journey wasn't without conflict. He often faced low expectations from some teachers who seemed to assume he wouldn't achieve much, and he had to work twice as hard to prove himself. One teacher, Ms. Rivera, was a beacon of hope in the sea of skepticism. She was a civics teacher who recognized Marcus's potential and encouraged him to dream bigger. "You have a voice, Marcus," she told him during a quiet moment after class. "Don't ever let anyone tell you it doesn't matter." That encouragement fueled Marcus's growing interest in law and justice. He spent hours after school reading about the Constitution, landmark court cases, and civil rights leaders like Thurgood Marshall and Ruth Bader Ginsburg. His dream was clear: to become a lawyer who could stand up for people like him, fighting the biases and inequalities that had shadowed his life. But Marcus's world wasn't all about books and dreams. At home, Lisa was his rock. Though tired from long days, she always made time to listen, to advise, and to remind Marcus that family was everything. The bond between mother and son was unbreakable, forged through shared sacrifices and unwavering love. Emily, too, was a constant source of joy. Marcus often helped her with homework and cheered her on at her school plays. He knew his success wasn't just for him, it was for them, too. Their lives intertwined with the pulse of Cedarville, a town still wrestling with its past, where old prejudices lingered in the shadows but hope flickered in the hearts of many. Marcus's backstory was shaped by these contrasts: love and hardship, discrimination and hope, struggle and the relentless pursuit of justice. His experiences weren't just memories. They were the foundation of who he was and who he intended to become. The painful moments, like the basketball incident, had taught him not to be bitter but to be stronger. The encouragement from Ms. Rivera and the sacrifices of his mother lit a fire in him that no mockery could extinguish. Marcus wasn't just a boy who had been mocked in a courtroom, he was a young man who carried the weight of his family's dreams, the history of his community's fight for equality, and the promise of a better future. These relationships, his mother, sister, teacher, and community, shaped his motivations. They were the reasons he would not back down, the reasons he would turn humiliation into power. As he prepared to face the challenges ahead, Marcus held their voices close, ready to write the next chapter of his story with courage and determination. This was not just about him anymore, it was about standing for something greater. What would it take for a boy like Marcus to rise above the shadows of prejudice and become a force for change? The answer lay in the journey ahead. Marcus's life was a constant balancing act between hope and hardship, and as the days passed after that fateful courtroom encounter, the tension in his world grew heavier. The morning sun streamed weakly through his bedroom window as he sat at his small desk, textbooks spread around him, but his mind wasn't on homework. Instead, he replayed Judge Thompson's cruel words over and over in his head. How could a man entrusted with justice be so blinded by his own prejudice? The question gnawed at Marcus, fueling a growing fire of determination inside him. It wasn't just personal, it was systemic. That realization marked the beginning of a conflict far larger than one courtroom or one judge. It was about a young black boy standing against a history of bias, about a community yearning for fairness. But the path forward was far from clear. At school, whispers followed Marcus like shadows. Some students admired his quiet strength, others snickered behind his back, repeating the judge's mockery as if it were a joke. Marcus felt isolated but refused to show weakness. Instead, he doubled down, pouring himself into his studies and the mentorship of Ms. Rivera, who continued to be a steadfast source of support. She pushed him to enter the school's debate club, knowing his sharp mind and steady voice would shine there. "You have to learn to stand tall, Marcus," she said firmly one afternoon after practice. "Not just with your words, but with your presence. People listen when you own your space." It was a challenge he took seriously. Each day, Marcus practiced speaking with confidence, even when his heart trembled. But the pressure wasn't just external. Inside, he wrestled with moments of self-doubt. Could he really change the world? Could a teenager from Cedarville rise above the odds stacked against him? Those nights were the hardest, lying awake wondering if the fight was worth it. Meanwhile, the conflict with Judge Thompson was escalating. News of the courtroom incident spread through the community, and while some sympathized with Marcus, others sided with the judge. The local newspaper ran an editorial defending Thompson, calling Marcus's complaint an overreaction. That article stung. It revealed just how deeply entrenched prejudice could be, even in places claiming fairness. But Marcus found unexpected hope in the form of friends who rallied around him. His best friend, Jamal, stood by his side, reminding him of the bigger picture. "You're gonna be more than what they expect," Jamal said one evening as they sat on the porch. "They don't know what you're capable of yet." That belief was a lifeline. Slowly, the rising conflict took on new shapes. Marcus began receiving calls from local civil rights activists offering guidance and support. They encouraged him to not just be a victim but a voice for change. The tension between the boy and the judge became a symbol of the town's struggle with its own conscience. But as the public battles raged, Marcus's personal life wasn't immune to struggle. His mother's health, already fragile from years of exhaustion, began to decline. The added stress made every moment at home precious and fragile. Marcus felt the weight of responsibility pressing down harder, but he refused to let it break him. Instead, he drew strength from his family's love and his own growing resolve. The hope climax rhythm played out in his life, the courtroom humiliation, climax, the encouragement from Ms. Rivera and friends, hope, then the harsh realities of his mother's illness and community backlash, climax. Each wave tested him, but he clung to hope like a lifeline. Marcus's world was becoming a crucible where every challenge forged a sharper version of himself. He was learning to fight not just for himself, but for a future where others wouldn't have to endure what he faced. The rising conflict was more than personal, it was the battle between old prejudices and new possibilities. Marcus was determined to be the change. What would it take to overcome not just one man's bias, but a system built on decades of injustice? Marcus's journey was about to shift dramatically as new opportunities opened, opportunities that would test everything he had learned and push him into uncharted territory. But no matter what came next, Marcus knew one thing for sure, he would never back down. Marcus's life took an unexpected turn the summer after his junior year of high school. After months of balancing schoolwork, family struggles, and the escalating tensions with Judge Thompson, Marcus received an email that would change everything. The Cedarville Legal Aid Society was offering a summer internship program for promising students interested in law and public service. It was competitive, but Marcus's civics teacher, Ms. Rivera, helped him prepare an application that highlighted his academic record, debate club achievements, and his personal story of confronting injustice. When Marcus got the acceptance letter, he felt a surge of hope and excitement unlike anything he had known before. The internship would plunge him into a world he had only dreamed of, a world of courtrooms, lawyers, and the real fight for justice. On his first day at the Legal Aid Society, Marcus walked into a modest office filled with stacks of case files and the hum of conversations about legal strategies. He met Ms. Carter, a seasoned civil rights attorney known for her passionate defense of marginalized communities. "Welcome, Marcus," she said, shaking his hand firmly. "We're glad to have you here. There's a lot to learn, and you're exactly the kind of young person we need." The days that followed were intense. Marcus was assigned to shadow attorneys, sit in on hearings, and research cases involving tenant rights, discrimination, and family law. He soaked up every detail, his eyes bright with determination. The legal aid office became a second home, a place where he felt seen and valued. But the internship also brought new challenges. Marcus encountered clients whose lives had been devastated by injustice, families evicted without cause, workers denied fair wages, and victims of police misconduct. The stories were heartbreaking, but they fueled Marcus's resolve. He saw clearly that the fight against prejudice was far from over. One afternoon, while reviewing a case file with Ms. Carter, Marcus noticed something troubling. The case involved a young black man unfairly charged with trespassing, and the presiding judge was none other than Judge Thompson. "This guy has a history," Ms. Carter explained. Judge Thompson's rulings have often been criticized for bias, but no one's challenged him directly, yet. Marcus's heart pounded. Here was the man who had mocked him in court, the symbol of everything he was fighting against. But instead of fear, Marcus felt a surge of courage. This was the moment to show what he was made of. Over the weeks, Marcus worked tirelessly, drafting legal arguments, preparing briefs, and practicing courtroom etiquette. Ms. Carter became both mentor and coach, guiding him through the complex world of law and strategy. She challenged him to think critically, to anticipate opposition, and to maintain integrity no matter the pressure. Meanwhile, news of Marcus's internship spread through Cedarville, stirring mixed reactions. Some in the community saw him as a beacon of hope, proof that change was possible. Others, including some local officials, dismissed him as just a kid with big dreams. Judge Thompson, when he heard, reportedly scoffed, calling Marcus's efforts childish. But Marcus refused to be deterred. The internship was not just a learning experience, it was a declaration. He was stepping into the arena, ready to face whatever came next. One day, as Marcus prepared to attend a hearing on the trespassing case, he felt the familiar mix of nerves and determination. Walking into the courtroom, he remembered the judge's mocking words from months before. But now, Marcus was no longer just a scared teenager, he was an intern at a respected legal aid society, armed with knowledge and a growing confidence that surprised even himself. The courtroom smelled of polished wood and worn leather, a place steeped in tradition but also the site of countless battles for justice. As Judge Thompson entered, his gaze briefly flickered to Marcus with thinly veiled contempt. But Marcus held his ground, meeting the judge's eyes steadily. The hearing began, and Marcus watched as Ms. Carter presented their case with precision. When the judge questioned Marcus directly, testing him with sharp, dismissive questions, Marcus answered clearly and confidently, his voice steady despite the pressure. The judge's sneer faltered for a moment, replaced by a grudging respect. It was a small victory, but a significant one. Marcus realized that knowledge and preparation could silence even the harshest critics. That day marked a turning point, not just in the case, but in Marcus's own journey. He wasn't just fighting for a client, he was fighting for himself, for his family, and for every person who had been underestimated because of who they were. The vivid scenes of the courtroom, the sharp exchanges, and the tense atmosphere all painted a picture of a young man stepping into his power. It was an adventure filled with hardship, yes, but also with the thrilling promise of change. Marcus knew the path ahead would be full of obstacles, but he was ready. This journey was no longer a dream, it was reality. What would happen when the boy mocked by a judge became the very lawyer who challenged him? The tension in the courtroom was palpable as Marcus Jefferson stood ready to testify, not as a defendant or witness this time, but as a junior legal intern assisting with a case that hit close to home. Judge Thompson, perched high behind his bench, glanced at Marcus with a mixture of disbelief and disdain, the sneer barely concealed beneath his robe. The years since their first confrontation had only sharpened the judge's skepticism. He seemed convinced that Marcus, still a young black man from Cedarville, could never be more than a troublemaker in his courtroom. But Marcus was no longer the timid teenager who had been mocked months ago. He had grown in knowledge, confidence, and resolve, thanks to his internship at the Cedarville Legal Aid Society and the unwavering support of mentors like Ms. Carter. As Marcus took the stand to deliver a critical legal argument in a discrimination lawsuit, every eye in the courtroom was on him. His voice, steady and clear, cut through the heavy silence. "Your Honor, the evidence shows a pattern of bias that cannot be ignored. Justice demands impartiality, and this court must recognize the rights of all citizens, regardless of race or background." The judge's eyes narrowed, but Marcus held his gaze unflinchingly. This was the emotional climax, not just a test of legal skill, but a profound confrontation between prejudice and principle. The courtroom crackled with tension as Judge Thompson considered Marcus's words. For a moment, it seemed the old guard would prevail, that the judge's hardened biases would drown out reason. But then, unexpectedly, the judge's tone shifted slightly, no longer mocking, but cautious, even contemplative. Marcus saw the flicker of doubt. The battle was far from over, but this moment carried hope. Hope that justice could begin to pierce through the darkness of discrimination. Hope that one day, fairness would not be a mere ideal but a reality in Cedarville's courts. This was the climax of Marcus's journey, a moment where years of struggle, pain, and perseverance converged in a single, powerful truth. The judge's courtroom, once a place of mockery, was now the stage for Marcus's voice to be heard loud and clear. And yet, the story didn't end here. After the hearing, Marcus sat quietly with Ms. Carter, reflecting on what had just happened. "You did something today, Marcus," she said softly. "You reminded everyone that courage and truth can break down even the strongest walls." But Marcus knew there was more work ahead. The fight for justice was ongoing, and every small victory was just a step on a much longer path. Outside the courtroom, the community watched with bated breath. Many were inspired by Marcus's courage, seeing in him the promise of a new era. Others resisted, clinging to old prejudices. Yet Marcus's journey had taught him that change was never easy, but always possible when met with steadfast determination and heart. His mother's proud smile, his sister's unwavering belief, and the lessons from mentors fueled his resolve. In that moment, Marcus understood that life's greatest battles were fought not just in courts or offices, but within ourselves, overcoming doubt, pain, and fear to stand for what is right. The emotional climax was a turning point, but also a reminder that every end was a new beginning. Marcus Jefferson's story was far from over. The lessons learned, the battles fought, and the hope kindled in that courtroom would ripple out, inspiring others to believe in justice's promise. As Marcus stepped out of the courtroom that day, he carried with him not just a legal victory, but a profound truth, that love, courage, and integrity could light the way even through the darkest moments. What life lesson can you take from Marcus's journey about standing up for justice, even when the odds seem stacked against you? The answer, perhaps, lies in the resilience of a young man who refused to be defined by others' narrow minds, and instead chose to define his own future. The courtroom doors closed behind Marcus Jefferson with a heavy finality, but his journey was far from over. The emotional climax in front of Judge Thompson had marked a turning point, but the true test awaited outside the walls of justice. As Marcus stepped into the cool afternoon air, the weight of expectation settled on his shoulders. The community was watching. His family was counting on him. And perhaps most importantly, Marcus himself was learning that the road to change was never straight or easy. In the days that followed, Marcus found himself reflecting deeply on everything he had endured and overcome. He sat with his mother, Lisa, in their modest living room, the soft hum of the neighborhood life drifting through the open window. Lisa's eyes shone with pride but also concern. "You've come so far, Marcus," she said quietly, reaching for his hand. "But remember, this fight isn't just for you. It's for all of us." Those words echoed in his mind as Marcus grappled with the complexities of his role. He wasn't just a young man seeking justice for a single case, he was becoming a symbol for his community, a beacon of hope that could inspire change in a system long resistant to it. The pressure was immense, but Marcus knew he had to rise to the occasion. Returning to the Cedarville Legal Aid Society, Marcus threw himself into his work with renewed vigor. Every case, every client, was a chance to make a difference. He saw firsthand how legal advocacy could transform lives, how a well-argued motion or a compassionate attorney could restore dignity to those who had been wronged. These experiences deepened his understanding of justice as not just a legal principle but a human one. At school, Marcus's transformation was equally profound. Once seen by some as just the kid who had been humiliated, he was now a respected leader among his peers. He started a student group focused on civil rights and social justice, inviting students from all backgrounds to join. The group became a platform for dialogue, education, and activism, a small but powerful step toward bridging divides. Yet, the path was never without obstacles. Marcus faced backlash from some community members who resented the changes he represented. Threatening messages arrived, and whispers of doubt tried to undermine his efforts. It was a harsh reminder that progress often provokes resistance. But Marcus's resolve only strengthened. Each challenge was met with calm determination and unwavering integrity. The turning point came unexpectedly during a community forum organized to address racial tensions in Cedarville. Marcus was invited to speak, a testament to his growing influence. Standing before a crowd that included allies and skeptics alike, he shared his story, not just the courtroom drama, but the struggles of growing up in a world that often judged him unfairly. His words were raw and honest, filled with emotion that resonated deeply. "Change isn't easy," Marcus said, "but it's necessary. We all deserve to be seen, heard, and treated with respect. I stand here not just as a lawyer in training, but as a son, a brother, a member of this community who believes in a better future." The room was silent for a moment before applause broke out, some hesitant, some heartfelt. It was a small victory, but a significant one. Marcus realized that true resolution wasn't just about legal wins, it was about healing wounds, building bridges, and inspiring understanding. Back at home, Marcus took time to reflect on the journey that had brought him here. From a boy mocked in a courtroom to a young man commanding respect and inspiring change, the transformation was profound. Yet, he understood that growth was ongoing, a lifelong process of learning and evolving. He remembered the words his mother often repeated, "Life is full of surprises, but love will always lead the way." That lesson, born of sacrifice and hope, guided Marcus as he looked toward the future. He knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, he would face them with courage, compassion, and the unshakable belief that justice was worth fighting for. As the chapter of his youth closed, Marcus prepared to step boldly into adulthood, ready to carry forward the lessons of love, family, and sacrifice that had shaped him. His story was a testament to the power of resilience and the enduring strength of the human spirit, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, hope and determination could light the way. What would you say is the most powerful lesson Marcus's journey teaches about the role of love and sacrifice in the pursuit of justice? Marcus Jefferson stood at the edge of the courthouse steps, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the worn stone. The courthouse, once a symbol of fear and mockery for him, had become a place of transformation, a battleground where he fought not just for himself but for his community. His journey was far from over, but in this moment, Marcus felt the weight of years of struggle beginning to lift. Behind him, Cedarville buzzed with the same quiet rhythm, but within him, something profound had shifted, a fierce determination tempered by the lessons of love, family, and sacrifice. As Marcus prepared to enter his senior year, his role in the fight for justice had grown beyond what he could have imagined. The student-led civil rights group he founded was thriving, a diverse collection of voices united by a shared vision of fairness and inclusion. Together, they organized workshops, hosted speakers, and participated in local government meetings, becoming a visible force for change in a town long resistant to it. Yet Marcus knew that real progress required more than activism, it required education and empathy. To that end, he worked with teachers to develop curriculum materials that explored the history of racial injustice and the importance of civic engagement. His goal was to inspire the next generation to carry the torch forward. At home, Marcus balanced his growing responsibilities with the joys and challenges of family life. His mother's health had stabilized, thanks to better care and the support of community resources Marcus had helped connect them to. His younger sister, Jasmine, looked up to him as a role model, and Marcus made time to mentor her, encouraging her dreams and reminding her that their past did not define their future. Despite the progress, Marcus remained grounded in the realities of systemic inequality. Court cases continued to reveal persistent biases, and community tensions flared unexpectedly. One evening, after a heated town hall meeting, Marcus found himself the target of a harsh personal attack on social media. The hateful comments stung, but they also revealed the urgency of his mission. Instead of retreating, Marcus used the moment to speak out about the impact of hate and the power of solidarity. "We are stronger together," he posted, "and I refuse to let fear or hate silence our voices." The response was overwhelming. Messages of support poured in from all corners of Cedarville and beyond. Friends, neighbors, even strangers shared their own stories of resilience and hope. Marcus realized that his journey was no longer his alone. It was a collective movement fueled by shared dreams for justice and dignity. In school, Marcus's academic achievements continued to soar. His passion for law and public service earned him a scholarship to a prestigious university, a milestone that symbolized both personal triumph and the breaking of barriers. The day he received the acceptance letter, his family celebrated with a quiet joy, knowing that Marcus's future held limitless possibilities. Yet, with success came new challenges. Preparing to leave Cedarville meant confronting fears of the unknown and the responsibility of carrying his community's hopes into a wider world. Marcus wrestled with these emotions, seeking solace in the wisdom of his mentors and the unwavering support of his family. Throughout it all, Marcus remained deeply connected to the lessons that had shaped him, that love, whether from family, friends, or community, was the foundation of strength, that sacrifice was often necessary in the pursuit of justice. And that change, while slow and difficult, was possible when fueled by courage and conviction. These truths gave Marcus the resilience to face each day with purpose. As his senior year unfolded, Marcus found moments of quiet reflection amid the whirlwind of activity. He often returned to the courthouse steps where his journey had begun, feeling a profound sense of gratitude for how far he had come. The boy once mocked and underestimated was now a young man ready to forge a new path, not just for himself, but for all who had been silenced or sidelined. Marcus's story was a testament to the power of perseverance and the enduring belief that justice, love, and hope could overcome even the darkest prejudice. And as he looked ahead to the future, Marcus knew one thing with certainty: this was only the beginning. What are your thoughts on how Marcus's journey illustrates the importance of community and education in creating lasting change? Marcus Jefferson's final year at Cedarville High School unfolded with a mixture of challenges and triumphs that would forever shape his future. The boy who once stood quietly at the back of the courtroom, ridiculed by Judge Thompson, was now a recognized leader and an emerging voice for justice. The transformation was not just external. It was deeply rooted in the way Marcus saw himself and his place in the world. Every morning, as he walked through the halls of his school, Marcus carried with him the knowledge that his journey was bigger than any single case or courtroom battle. His mission was to inspire others, to build bridges across divides, and to challenge the systems that perpetuated inequality. The student civil rights group Marcus had founded continued to grow, attracting students from all backgrounds eager to learn, debate, and advocate for change. The group organized a series of events, including panel discussions featuring local activists, workshops on voter registration, and a community art project celebrating diversity. Marcus's role as a leader was demanding, requiring him to balance schoolwork, family responsibilities, and his internship hours. Yet he approached each task with unwavering commitment, driven by the vision of a more just Cedarville. At home, Marcus's relationship with his family deepened. His mother, Lisa, often reminded him that their strength came from their love and shared sacrifices. One evening, after a particularly long day, Lisa sat with Marcus and shared stories of her own struggles growing up in a segregated town. "Your fight," she said softly, "is part of a long line of battles that our family and community have faced. You carry their hopes and dreams with you." Those words resonated deeply, grounding Marcus in the legacy of resilience that had sustained his family through generations. As the school year progressed, Marcus faced new tests of character and resolve. One of the most significant came during a heated debate over a proposed school policy that would affect disciplinary procedures disproportionately impacting minority students. Marcus and his civil rights group worked tirelessly to organize petitions, meet with school board members, and present their case at public hearings. The opposition was fierce, with some accusing the group of stirring unrest. But Marcus remained composed, using the skills he had honed through his internship and activism to articulate a compelling argument for fairness and reform. The turning point came at the school board meeting, where Marcus was invited to speak. Standing before a packed auditorium, he shared not only statistics and facts but also personal stories of students affected by the policy. His voice carried the weight of lived experience and the hope for change. When he finished, the room erupted in applause, and several board members expressed their support for revisiting the policy. It was a victory born of persistence, courage, and the power of collective action. Meanwhile, Marcus's academic achievements earned him recognition and awards. His teachers praised his analytical mind, his eloquence, and his empathy. His scholarship to a prestigious university was no longer a distant dream but an imminent reality. Yet, with this success came the bittersweet realization that leaving Cedarville meant stepping away from the community that had shaped him. Marcus wrestled with feelings of uncertainty and responsibility, questioning how he could continue to make an impact from afar. To prepare for this transition, Marcus sought guidance from Miss Carter, his mentor at the Legal Aid Society. During a late afternoon meeting in her cluttered office, Miss Carter offered wisdom that stayed with him. "Change doesn't happen overnight," she said. "It's a marathon, not a sprint. Wherever you go, take the lessons of home with you. And remember, every voice raised in truth and justice makes a difference." The months leading to graduation were a whirlwind of celebrations and farewells. Marcus's speech at the commencement ceremony was a heartfelt reflection on his journey, a call to action for his peers, and a tribute to those who had supported him. "We all have a role to play," he said, "in building a world where justice is more than a word, it's a reality for everyone." His words echoed beyond the walls of the auditorium, inspiring a generation to dream bigger and fight harder. On the day of graduation, as Marcus stood among his classmates, he felt a profound sense of accomplishment mixed with anticipation. The future was uncertain, but his purpose was clear. The battles ahead would be challenging, but armed with love, sacrifice, and unyielding hope, Marcus was ready to face them. His story, a journey from a boy mocked in a courtroom to a young leader demanding change, was a testament to the enduring power of resilience and the transformative impact of courage. As Marcus looked toward the horizon, he carried with him the lessons learned, the relationships forged, and the unwavering belief that justice was worth every sacrifice. His story was far from over. In many ways, it was just beginning. And for Cedarville, for his family, and for himself, that was a promise of a brighter tomorrow. What message from Marcus's senior year resonates most with you about leadership and the fight for justice? Marcus Jefferson's first semester at university was a whirlwind of emotions, challenges, and new experiences that tested every ounce of his resilience and determination. Leaving Cedarville behind was both exhilarating and daunting. The sprawling campus of Westfield University, with its grand libraries and bustling student centers, was worlds away from the tight-knit community he had known. Yet, Marcus embraced this new chapter with the same fiery passion that had carried him through years of struggle and triumph. From the moment he stepped onto campus, Marcus was determined to make his mark, not just academically, but as a voice for justice and equality. The diverse student body brought new perspectives and opportunities, but it also exposed him to subtle biases and microaggressions that reminded him how pervasive inequality could be. Classes were rigorous, demanding long hours of study and research, yet Marcus thrived in the intellectually charged environment. His professors recognized his sharp legal mind and his ability to connect theory with real-world application. Outside the classroom, Marcus joined the university's Social Justice Alliance, quickly rising to a leadership position. The group organized awareness campaigns, community outreach, and forums on racial equity, echoing the work he had done in Cedarville but on a larger, more complex scale. Balancing academic responsibilities with activism was challenging, and there were moments when the pressure felt overwhelming. Marcus experienced bouts of loneliness, missing his family and the familiar rhythms of home. But through these struggles, he found strength in new friendships with peers who shared his commitment to justice. One such friend, Elena, a law student from a neighboring state, became both a confidant and collaborator. Together, they worked on projects advocating for criminal justice reform and supported local community initiatives. Their partnership blossomed into a deep friendship rooted in mutual respect and shared values. Marcus's internship with a prominent civil rights law firm in the city further honed his skills. Working alongside seasoned attorneys, he encountered complex cases that challenged his understanding of the law and its impact on marginalized communities. Each case was a reminder of the stakes involved, the lives affected by systemic injustice and the urgent need for dedicated advocates. Yet, university life was not without its setbacks. Marcus faced moments of self-doubt, especially when confronted with the sheer scale of injustice. At times, the progress he yearned for seemed slow and elusive. But each setback was met with reflection and renewed resolve. Drawing on the lessons from his past, the love of his family, the sacrifices made, and the strength forged through hardship, Marcus learned to navigate these challenges with grace. Throughout the semester, Marcus also sought ways to maintain his connection to Cedarville. He participated in virtual town halls and legal clinics aimed at supporting his hometown. These efforts reinforced his commitment to his roots and reminded him that his journey was intertwined with the community that had shaped him. As the semester drew to a close, Marcus found himself reflecting on the incredible growth he had experienced. The university had expanded his horizons, sharpened his skills, and introduced him to a network of passionate individuals committed to justice. Yet, it was the enduring lessons of love, sacrifice, and resilience from Cedarville that remained his guiding light. Marcus's story was no longer just about overcoming adversity, it was about using that strength to uplift others and forge a path toward meaningful change. What do you think are the key factors that helped Marcus navigate the challenges of university life while staying true to his mission? Marcus Jefferson's sophomore year at Westfield University unfolded with a deepening sense of purpose and the growing complexity of balancing academics, activism, and personal growth. The excitement and novelty of his first semester had given way to the realization that true change required sustained effort and strategic thinking. Marcus had come to understand that the fight for justice was a marathon filled with both victories and setbacks, demanding patience, resilience, and an unwavering commitment to his values. One of the most transformative experiences of the year was Marcus's involvement in a landmark case through his internship at the civil rights law firm. The case involved a group of low-income tenants in a nearby city facing eviction due to discriminatory housing practices by a major real estate developer. As Marcus delved into the legal documents and community testimonies, he was struck by the systemic nature of the injustice and the courage of the tenants standing up against powerful interests. Working alongside seasoned attorneys, Marcus helped prepare legal briefs and participated in strategy meetings, gaining invaluable insight into the complexities of litigation and advocacy. The emotional weight of the case was heavy. Marcus often thought back to his own family's struggles and the precariousness of housing security that many in Cedarville faced. The long hours and the pressure of the work were taxing, but the tangible impact they were making inspired Marcus to push forward. The case became a focal point for the Social Justice Alliance at Westfield University, galvanizing students and faculty to support the tenants through fundraisers, awareness campaigns, and volunteer efforts. Meanwhile, Marcus's coursework grew more demanding. Constitutional law and civil rights classes challenged him intellectually, encouraging critical analysis of legal precedents and the evolving interpretation of justice in America. Discussions in class were often intense, with debates about the role of the judiciary in addressing systemic racism and the limitations of existing laws. Marcus contributed passionately, drawing from his own experiences and those of his community to enrich the conversations. Outside of academics and activism, Marcus cultivated meaningful relationships that supported his growth. His friendship with Elena deepened, providing a source of emotional support and intellectual companionship. They often spent evenings discussing legal theories, social justice strategies, and their hopes for the future. Marcus also connected with professors who became mentors, guiding him through the complexities of legal education and encouraging him to pursue public interest law. Yet, the year was not without challenges. Marcus grappled with moments of burnout and frustration, questioning whether the progress they sought was attainable. The weight of systemic injustice sometimes felt overwhelming, and balancing his responsibilities tested his limits. During one particularly difficult period, Marcus confided in Ms. Carter, his longtime mentor from Cedarville, whose words reminded him of the enduring power of perseverance and community. As spring approached, the eviction case reached a pivotal moment. The legal team secured a preliminary injunction that halted the evictions, a significant victory for the tenants and a testament to the power of collective action. The success energized Marcus and the Social Justice Alliance, fueling renewed commitment to their advocacy efforts. Yet, Marcus remained mindful that the road ahead was long, with many battles still to fight. Reflecting on the year, Marcus recognized that his journey was not just about legal victories but about embodying the values of empathy, integrity, and courage. His growth was marked by an evolving understanding of leadership, not as a position of power but as a responsibility to serve others and amplify marginalized voices. The lessons from Cedarville, woven through every experience, grounded him as he navigated the complexities of university life and the broader fight for justice. Marcus's sophomore year was a testament to the importance of resilience, community, and unwavering commitment. His story continued to unfold, shaped by challenges and triumphs, setbacks and breakthroughs, always guided by the belief that love and sacrifice were the foundations of meaningful change. What do you think Marcus's experiences during his sophomore year teach us about the nature of leadership and advocacy? Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Marcus Jefferson's junior year at Westfield University marked a critical evolution in his journey from a passionate student activist to a more seasoned strategic advocate for justice. The earlier years had been marked by discovery, resilience, and growth, but now Marcus was stepping into a broader arena, one that demanded not just passion but also nuanced understanding, diplomacy, and long-term vision. The boy who had once been mocked in a courtroom was becoming a young man prepared to shape policy and influence systemic change on a wider scale. From the outset of the academic year, Marcus immersed himself in advanced coursework focusing on civil rights law, constitutional litigation, and public policy. These classes challenged him to think beyond individual cases and consider the structural mechanisms that upheld inequality. He engaged deeply with theories of systemic racism, legal reform, and community empowerment, often drawing parallels to his experiences growing up in Cedarville. His professors, impressed by his dedication and insight, encouraged him to pursue internships and research opportunities that would broaden his impact. Marcus secured a prestigious internship with a nonprofit organization dedicated to criminal justice reform, located in the state capital. This role brought him face-to-face with the complexities of policy advocacy, legislative lobbying, and grassroots organizing. Working alongside seasoned attorneys and policy experts, Marcus learned to draft legislation, prepare testimony for legislative hearings, and coordinate coalition building among diverse stakeholders. The internship was demanding and often disheartening, as progress was slow and political opposition fierce, but Marcus's commitment never wavered. One particularly defining moment came when Marcus was asked to assist in preparing a policy brief aimed at reforming sentencing laws that disproportionately affected minority communities. Researching statistics and hearing personal stories from affected individuals, Marcus felt the profound human cost of these policies. He presented the brief at a public hearing before the state legislature, articulating the urgent need for change with clarity and passion. His testimony was met with both praise and skepticism, illustrating the challenges inherent in shifting entrenched systems. Back on campus, Marcus continued to lead the Social Justice Alliance, expanding its scope to include educational initiatives, voter registration drives, and partnerships with local government. He worked tirelessly to foster dialogue among students, faculty, and community leaders, recognizing that building coalitions was essential for sustainable change. Marcus also mentored younger students, sharing his experiences and encouraging them to engage actively in social justice work. Despite the successes, Marcus faced personal challenges. The intensity of his commitment strained his relationships, including his close friendship with Elena, as both navigated their own demanding paths. Moments of self-doubt and exhaustion tested his resolve, but Marcus found solace in the support of his family and the enduring lessons of perseverance instilled by his mother. He also leaned on the wisdom of Ms. Carter, whose mentorship remained a source of strength and guidance. Throughout the year, Marcus reflected deeply on the interplay between love, sacrifice, and justice. He recognized that meaningful change required not only confronting external barriers but also internal growth, cultivating patience, empathy, and humility. This realization shaped his leadership style, emphasizing collaboration over confrontation and listening over speaking. As the academic year drew to a close, Marcus prepared to take the LSAT, the gateway to law school. The exam represented both a challenge and an opportunity, a stepping stone toward realizing his dream of becoming a civil rights attorney. Balancing study with activism and personal life was daunting, but Marcus approached the task with characteristic discipline and focus. Looking back on his junior year, Marcus saw a trajectory marked by maturation and expanding influence. He was no longer just the young man who had been underestimated and mocked, he was emerging as a thoughtful leader equipped with the skills, knowledge, and heart to drive systemic change. His story was a powerful reminder that the pursuit of justice is a lifelong journey, demanding courage, sacrifice, and unwavering hope. What aspects of Marcus's junior year do you find most inspiring about the evolution of leadership in social justice movements? Marcus Jefferson's senior year at Westfield University was the culmination of years of dedication, sacrifice, and growth. The boy who once faced ridicule in a courtroom had transformed into a confident young man poised to enter the legal profession as a passionate advocate for justice. Yet, even as graduation loomed, Marcus knew that the challenges ahead would test him in ways he had never imagined. His journey was far from over, in many ways, it was just beginning. The fall semester brought a mix of anticipation and responsibility. Marcus took advanced seminars in civil rights law and legal ethics, sharpening his ability to navigate the complexities of the legal system. These classes deepened his understanding of how laws could both protect and harm marginalized communities. Discussions about historical injustices and contemporary struggles fueled Marcus's determination to be part of the solution. At the same time, Marcus balanced an intense internship with a prominent public defender's office in the city. This role exposed him to the stark realities of the criminal justice system, overcrowded courts, systemic biases, and clients whose lives were often shaped by poverty and discrimination. Marcus witnessed firsthand the crucial role of compassionate and skilled defense attorneys in safeguarding rights and dignity. The experience reaffirmed his commitment to pursuing a career in public interest law. On campus, Marcus continued to lead the Social Justice Alliance, now mentoring a new generation of student activists. Under his guidance, the group launched initiatives focusing on prison reform, police accountability, and voter rights. Marcus emphasized the importance of strategic action, coalition building, and sustained advocacy. He encouraged members to view activism not just as protest but as a multifaceted effort involving education, policy change, and community empowerment. Personal relationships also evolved during this pivotal year. Marcus and Elena's friendship deepened into a partnership rooted in shared ideals and mutual support. Together, they navigated the demands of their studies and activism, finding strength in each other's resilience. Marcus's family remained his anchor, their love and sacrifices a constant source of motivation. However, senior year was not without its challenges. Marcus faced moments of self-doubt and fatigue as the pressure of balancing academic, professional, and personal commitments mounted. The weight of expectations, both his own and those of the community counting on him, sometimes felt overwhelming. Yet, in these moments, Marcus drew on the lessons of perseverance and hope that had carried him through earlier trials. One of the defining moments of the year came during the university's annual Human Rights Symposium, where Marcus was invited to deliver the keynote address. Standing before a diverse audience of students, faculty, and community members, he shared his story, of mockery and hardship, resilience and triumph, love and sacrifice. His speech was a powerful call to action, urging listeners to embrace empathy, challenge injustice, and believe in the power of collective change. As graduation approached, Marcus reflected on the transformative journey that had brought him from the courtroom where Judge Thompson once belittled him to the precipice of a promising legal career. The path had been marked by obstacles and victories, setbacks and breakthroughs. Through it all, Marcus had grown not only as a scholar and advocate but as a person deeply committed to justice and community. In his final semester, Marcus prepared to take the bar exam and explore opportunities for postgraduate fellowships focused on civil rights law. He understood that the road ahead would demand continued sacrifice and courage, but he was ready. Armed with knowledge, experience, and an unshakable belief in justice, Marcus was determined to make a lasting impact. His story was a testament to the power of resilience, the importance of love and family, and the enduring hope that drives social change. From a teenager mocked in a courtroom to a young man poised to become a defender of the marginalized, Marcus Jefferson embodied the transformative potential of courage and conviction. What lessons from Marcus's senior year resonate most with you about the journey from adversity to leadership? Marcus Jefferson's journey into his first year of law school was a crucible of transformation, pushing him to his limits intellectually, emotionally, and morally. Entering the prestigious Hamilton Law School, he was no longer just a promising student but a burgeoning legal mind with a mission deeply rooted in justice and equity. The boy who had once been belittled in a courtroom had matured into a man ready to confront the legal system's deepest flaws and advocate for those too often ignored. The rigorous curriculum at Hamilton tested Marcus in ways he hadn't anticipated. Courses on constitutional law, civil procedure, and legal writing demanded not only academic excellence but also a critical examination of the law's impact on society. Marcus found himself grappling with difficult questions. How could laws designed to protect justice sometimes perpetuate inequality? What responsibilities did lawyers have beyond winning cases? These questions fueled his drive and deepened his commitment to public interest law. Outside the classroom, Marcus immersed himself in the school's public interest law society, quickly becoming a key leader. He spearheaded initiatives aimed at expanding access to legal resources for underserved communities and organized workshops on implicit bias and systemic racism for fellow students and faculty. His passion was contagious, inspiring many peers to join the fight for a fairer legal system. Marcus also secured a summer internship with a nonprofit dedicated to juvenile justice reform. Working closely with attorneys and affected youths, he witnessed firsthand the challenges young people faced in the criminal justice system: over-policing, harsh sentencing, and limited rehabilitation opportunities. The experience was both heartbreaking and motivating, reinforcing Marcus's resolve to be a voice for change. Balancing the demands of law school, activism, and personal growth was arduous. There were late nights poring over casebooks, intense debates in study groups, and moments when the weight of systemic injustice felt overwhelming. Yet, Marcus's support network, his family, close friends like Elena, and mentors including Ms. Carter, provided crucial encouragement. Their belief in him reminded Marcus that he was part of a larger community striving for justice. A particularly pivotal moment came during a moot court competition, where Marcus argued a case involving racial profiling and police misconduct. His performance was lauded for its legal acumen and emotional depth, earning him recognition among faculty and peers. But more importantly, it affirmed his belief that law could be wielded as a powerful tool for social change when guided by integrity and empathy. Throughout the year, Marcus reflected on the lessons from his past. The courtroom where Judge Thompson's mockery had once threatened to silence him, the family sacrifices that fueled his dreams, and the communities that inspired his activism. These reflections deepened his understanding of justice not merely as a legal principle but as a lived reality for countless individuals. As the academic year drew to a close, Marcus felt a renewed sense of purpose. His journey, from a mocked teen to a promising law student, was a testament to resilience, hope, and the transformative power of love and sacrifice. The road ahead would be challenging, but Marcus was ready to face it with courage and conviction. What about Marcus's first year of law school do you find most compelling in his growth as an advocate for justice? Marcus Jefferson's second year of law school was a period of intense growth, testing not only his legal knowledge but also his capacity to lead, inspire, and confront the systemic injustices he had vowed to dismantle. Building on the foundations laid during his first year at Hamilton Law School, Marcus took on new challenges that deepened his understanding of the law's power and limitations. His evolution from a student to an emerging advocate was marked by moments of triumph, hardship, and profound personal reflection. The academic demands increased sharply. Marcus enrolled in specialized courses on criminal justice reform, civil rights litigation, and constitutional remedies. These classes pushed him to analyze landmark cases with fresh eyes and consider how legal doctrines could be reinterpreted to better serve marginalized communities. He often found himself questioning traditional narratives and advocating for a more expansive view of justice that included reparations, restorative justice, and systemic change. Marcus's leadership roles expanded beyond the Public Interest Law Society. He was elected president of the organization, a position that amplified his influence and responsibilities. Under his leadership, the society launched ambitious projects, including a legal clinic offering pro bono services to underserved populations and a campaign to address racial disparities in local policing. Marcus coordinated efforts between students, faculty, and community partners, learning firsthand the complexities of coalition building and the necessity of strategic planning. His internship experiences also evolved. During the summer, Marcus worked with a civil rights law firm specializing in police accountability cases. The work was emotionally taxing but deeply fulfilling. He assisted in investigating allegations of misconduct, interviewing witnesses, and drafting motions. Each case was a stark reminder of the systemic issues he aimed to fight, but also of the critical role dedicated lawyers played in seeking justice. The experience reinforced Marcus's resolve and sharpened his practical skills. Balancing these intense commitments was challenging. Marcus faced moments of exhaustion and self-doubt, questioning whether his efforts could truly make a difference. The weight of systemic oppression, both in the courtroom and in everyday life, sometimes felt overwhelming. Yet, he found strength in his community, friends like Elena, who continued to provide unwavering support, mentors who offered guidance, and his family, whose sacrifices grounded him. A particularly impactful moment came when Marcus organized a campus-wide forum on racial justice and legal reform. The event drew diverse voices from the university and the broader community, fostering dialogue on difficult topics such as implicit bias, mass incarceration, and voter suppression. Marcus's ability to facilitate honest conversations earned him respect and highlighted the importance of creating spaces for collective learning and healing. Throughout the year, Marcus continued to reflect on the lessons of love, sacrifice, and resilience that had shaped his journey. He recognized that the fight for justice was not a solitary endeavor but a collective movement requiring empathy, patience, and sustained commitment. His own growth was a testament to the power of community and the transformative potential of hope. As the year concluded, Marcus prepared for his upcoming internships and the challenges of his final year of law school. He was more determined than ever to use his legal education as a catalyst for change, embodying the values instilled in him from Cedarville to Hamilton. His story was a beacon of perseverance, a reminder that even in the face of adversity, love and conviction could pave the way for a brighter future. What elements of Marcus's second year resonate with you most about the journey toward becoming a justice advocate? Marcus Jefferson's third year of law school was the decisive phase of his transformation from a student of law into a committed practitioner ready to confront real-world challenges head-on. It was a year marked by rigorous academics, complex legal battles, personal growth, and deepening resolve. The lessons learned over the previous years, resilience, empathy, strategic thinking, were now tested in the crucible of practical experience and leadership. From the outset, Marcus focused on honing his specialization in civil rights and criminal justice reform. His coursework included advanced seminars on appellate advocacy, trial practice, and legislation drafting. Each class demanded meticulous preparation and sharpened his skills in argumentation, legal analysis, and ethical reasoning. Marcus thrived in the intellectually charged environment but remained grounded by the knowledge that the stakes went far beyond grades, lives and communities depended on the outcomes of justice. Marcus's commitment to practical application led him to secure a coveted position at the Hamilton Legal Aid Clinic. There, he represented clients facing discrimination, wrongful convictions, and police misconduct. The clinic's environment was fast-paced and emotionally demanding, pushing Marcus to apply his knowledge compassionately and effectively. Each client's story reinforced the systemic barriers many faced and the urgent need for dedicated advocates willing to challenge entrenched power structures. Leadership responsibilities also intensified. As president of the Public Interest Law Society, Marcus orchestrated initiatives that bridged law school and community needs. He launched a mentorship program connecting law students with young activists and aspiring lawyers from underrepresented backgrounds. Recognizing the importance of representation, Marcus worked tirelessly to foster inclusivity within the legal community, encouraging dialogue around race, class, and justice. One of the most challenging moments came when Marcus took on a high-profile case involving a wrongful conviction of a young black man. The evidence was circumstantial, and the legal battle was daunting. Marcus coordinated with forensic experts, investigative journalists, and community organizers to build a compelling case for exoneration. The experience tested his legal acumen and emotional endurance but ultimately resulted in a breakthrough, new evidence that cast significant doubt on the conviction. The victory was bittersweet, highlighting both the flaws in the justice system and the possibility for redemption through persistent advocacy. Throughout the year, Marcus grappled with the emotional toll of his work. The stories of injustice weighed heavily on him, sometimes leading to moments of despair. Yet, the support of his circle, Elena, his family, mentors, and peers, provided strength and perspective. Marcus learned to balance his passion with self-care, recognizing that sustaining the fight for justice required resilience and renewal. Marcus's senior thesis became a deeply personal project, examining the intersections of race, law, and social policy in the context of mass incarceration. Drawing from his experiences, research, and community engagement, Marcus crafted a compelling argument for comprehensive reform that emphasized restorative justice and community empowerment. His thesis was not only an academic achievement but a manifesto for the kind of legal practice he aspired to pursue. As graduation approached, Marcus reflected on the journey from the courtroom where he was once mocked to the present moment of poised readiness. The transformation was profound, not just in knowledge and skill but in character and purpose. Marcus was no longer just a survivor of adversity, he was a leader with a vision for a more just and equitable future. What aspects of Marcus's third year resonate most with you about the growth of a legal advocate? Marcus Jefferson's final semester at Hamilton Law School was a period filled with both anticipation and reflection. The culmination of years of dedication, sacrifice, and growth, this chapter of his life was poised to set the stage for the beginning of his professional career, a career defined not only by legal expertise but by a profound commitment to justice, equity, and community empowerment. As he prepared to graduate, Marcus found himself looking back at the journey that had transformed him from a teenage boy mocked in a courtroom to a confident, passionate advocate ready to make a difference. The semester began with Marcus undertaking his capstone project, a clinical practicum that allowed him to represent clients in civil rights cases under the supervision of experienced attorneys. The work was both challenging and rewarding, as Marcus navigated the complexities of the courtroom, client relationships, and legal strategy. One particularly memorable case involved advocating for a group of tenants facing eviction due to discriminatory housing practices. Marcus coordinated community meetings, negotiated with landlords, and crafted legal arguments that ultimately helped the tenants secure their homes. This experience underscored for Marcus the tangible impact that dedicated legal advocacy could have on people's lives. Marcus also devoted significant time to preparing for the bar exam, balancing his studies with ongoing clinic work and leadership responsibilities. The pressure was intense, but Marcus approached the challenge with determination and the support of his mentors and peers. Elena, now an aspiring social worker, provided steady encouragement, reminding Marcus of the importance of self-care and perspective amid the demands of their respective careers. Leadership remained central to Marcus's final months at Hamilton. As outgoing president of the Public Interest Law Society, he organized a year-end symposium focused on racial justice and legal reform. The event featured speakers from diverse backgrounds, including community activists, legal scholars, and formerly incarcerated individuals. Marcus's keynote address was a poignant reflection on his own journey, the systemic barriers he had confronted, and the ongoing struggle for equity. His words resonated deeply with attendees, reinforcing the power of storytelling and advocacy to inspire change. Outside the academic and professional spheres, Marcus reconnected with his family and community in Cedarville. Visiting his mother and siblings, he shared stories of his experiences and listened to their perspectives on the challenges still facing their town. These moments reminded Marcus of the roots that had shaped him and the responsibility he carried to give back. The love and sacrifices of his family remained a guiding light, fueling his commitment to justice. As graduation day approached, Marcus experienced a mix of excitement and humility. The honors he had earned and the recognition from faculty and peers affirmed his hard work, but he knew that true success would be measured by his impact beyond the classroom. The legal profession awaited him, with its complexities and imperfections, but Marcus was ready to meet those challenges with integrity and courage. In his closing reflections, Marcus acknowledged that his journey had been defined not only by overcoming external obstacles but by internal growth. Learning to balance passion with patience, advocacy with empathy, and ambition with service. He recognized that the path ahead would require continued learning and resilience, but he was energized by the knowledge that he was part of a broader movement for justice. Marcus Jefferson's story, from a teenager mocked in a courtroom to a law school graduate poised to change the world, embodies the transformative power of hope, love, and unwavering determination. It is a testament to the idea that even in the face of adversity, the pursuit of justice can lead to profound personal and societal change. What reflections from Marcus's final semester resonate most with you about the transition from student to advocate? Marcus Jefferson's first months as a newly minted attorney were both exhilarating and sobering, marking the beginning of a new chapter where ideals met reality head-on. Fresh out of Hamilton Law School and armed with a deep commitment to justice, Marcus joined the public defender's office in the heart of the city, determined to make an immediate impact. This role was the fulfillment of years of hard work, sacrifice, and relentless perseverance, but it also introduced Marcus to the stark realities and systemic challenges that would test his resolve in unexpected ways. Each case, client, and courtroom encounter became a microcosm of the larger fight for fairness, equality, and dignity. From the outset, Marcus encountered the high-pressure environment of criminal defense, where resources were scarce and the stakes impossibly high. He found himself representing clients entangled in a system riddled with racial bias, over-incarceration, and procedural injustices. The weight of responsibility pressed heavily. Marcus was not just advocating for individuals but battling a system that often seemed stacked against them. These early experiences solidified his understanding that the law, while a powerful tool, was also a reflection of society's deepest inequities. One of Marcus's first significant cases involved a young black man accused of armed robbery, an accusation rooted largely in unreliable eyewitness testimony and a rushed police investigation. Marcus meticulously gathered evidence, interviewed witnesses, and collaborated with forensic experts to uncover inconsistencies and procedural errors. The case was a grueling battle in court, where Marcus faced seasoned prosecutors and a skeptical judge. Despite the odds, Marcus's dedication paid off, the charges were dismissed, and his client was freed. This victory was more than a personal triumph, it was a testament to the necessity of skilled, compassionate defense in a flawed system. Alongside the emotional toll of his work, Marcus continued to grapple with the broader systemic issues affecting his clients. He attended community meetings, partnered with advocacy groups, and contributed to initiatives aimed at reforming bail policies, reducing mandatory minimum sentences, and improving police accountability. Marcus recognized that legal victories were only part of the solution, meaningful change required addressing root causes and systemic barriers. Balancing his demanding caseload with personal well-being was a constant challenge. The emotional weight of his clients' stories, families torn apart, lives disrupted, sometimes threatened to overwhelm him. Yet Marcus leaned on the support of his close-knit circle, Elena, now a licensed social worker, his family, whose unwavering belief in him was a constant source of strength, and colleagues who shared his vision and commitment. Together, they created a network of resilience and hope. A particularly defining moment came when Marcus was asked to lead a training workshop for new public defenders on addressing racial bias and cultural competency in the courtroom. Drawing from his own experiences and legal expertise, Marcus crafted a curriculum that combined legal theory with practical strategies and personal narratives. The workshop was well received and sparked important conversations within the office about equity and justice. Throughout these early months, Marcus never lost sight of the lessons that had carried him from that courtroom where Judge Thompson mocked him to his current role. He remained humble yet resolute, understanding that the fight for justice was ongoing and required both fierce advocacy and profound empathy. Marcus's journey was a beacon for others facing adversity, demonstrating that with perseverance, love, and courage, it was possible to transform pain into purpose. What aspects of Marcus's transition into his legal career resonate most with you about the realities of fighting for justice in the system? Marcus Jefferson's story reaches its profound culmination as he confronts the ultimate test of his values, skills, and courage, the high-stakes trial that would not only define his fledgling career but also challenge the very ideals of justice he had devoted himself to uphold. This case, unlike any he had faced before, brought together every lesson learned, every sacrifice made, and every relationship forged along the journey from a teenager mocked in a courtroom to a brilliant, compassionate lawyer determined to make a difference. It was a battle that would push Marcus beyond legal strategy and into the realm of personal conviction and social change. The case involved a young woman named Alicia Rivera, a community organizer accused of inciting a riot during a peaceful protest against police brutality. The charges were severe: felony rioting, property damage, and assault on an officer. Alicia's arrest had galvanized local activists and sparked widespread outrage, shining a spotlight on the systemic issues Marcus had long sought to address. The prosecution painted Alicia as a dangerous agitator intent on chaos, while the defense, led by Marcus, argued that she was exercising her constitutional right to free speech and assembly. From the outset, Marcus knew this trial would be more than a legal battle. It was a test of democracy itself. Preparing the defense required exhaustive investigation, gathering video evidence, interviewing eyewitnesses, and uncovering procedural missteps by law enforcement. Marcus worked tirelessly, often late into the night, driven by the knowledge that the outcome would impact not only Alicia's life but also the broader struggle for civil rights. The courtroom was a charged atmosphere. The judge, known for a strict interpretation of the law, seemed skeptical of the defense's arguments. The prosecution's opening statements were fierce, emphasizing public safety and the need to deter disorder. Marcus responded with calm, precise legal reasoning and a powerful narrative that framed Alicia's actions as courageous and necessary acts of civic engagement. He challenged the credibility of police witnesses and highlighted the peaceful intentions of the protesters. Throughout the trial, Marcus witnessed firsthand the deep-seated biases and institutional pressures that complicated the pursuit of justice. Yet, his composure, passion, and unwavering commitment resonated with the jury. He drew on every ounce of his legal training, personal experience, and moral clarity to advocate not just for his client but for the principles of fairness and equality. Outside the courtroom, Marcus continued to engage with the community, speaking at rallies, meeting with activists, and fostering dialogues about reform. These efforts reinforced the interconnectedness of legal advocacy and grassroots movements, illustrating that change required both courtroom victories and public support. The trial's emotional climax came during Marcus's closing argument, where he spoke not only as a lawyer but as someone who had lived the consequences of prejudice and injustice. He reminded the jury of the importance of protecting constitutional rights and the danger of punishing dissent. His words carried the weight of personal truth and professional expertise, creating a moment of profound impact. When the verdict was finally announced, Alicia was acquitted of all charges, the courtroom erupted in relief and celebration. The victory was monumental, signaling a step forward in the fight against unjust prosecutions of activists and reinforcing the power of dedicated legal advocacy. In the aftermath, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought him here, the hardships endured, the people who had believed in him, and the transformation from a teenager derided in court to a lawyer effecting real change. He recognized that while this victory was significant, the work was far from over. The legal system remained imperfect, and the struggle for justice was ongoing. Marcus's story closes on a hopeful note, underscoring the enduring lessons of resilience, love, and sacrifice. His journey illustrates how adversity can be a catalyst for growth and how one person's courage can inspire a movement. The courtroom that once echoed with mockery now stands as a symbol of triumph and possibility. Life is full of surprises, Marcus often reflected, but love and justice will always lead the way. What thoughts or feelings does Marcus's final trial inspire in you about the power of law and advocacy to shape society? The years passed quickly after Alicia Rivera's trial, but Marcus Jefferson never lost the fire in his heart, the one that burned the moment Judge Thompson first sneered at him in a courtroom years ago. That moment, once full of shame and anger, had transformed into something else entirely. It had become a mission. And now, standing once again in the very courthouse where it all began. This time not as a defendant or a witness, but as the keynote speaker for the State Bar's annual Civil Rights Symposium, Marcus felt the full weight of his journey. He stood at the back of the courtroom for a few quiet minutes before the program began. The wood-paneled walls, the heavy benches, the faint echo of footsteps across the tiled floor, it was all the same. The only thing that had changed was him. Marcus adjusted the cuffs of his tailored suit and exhaled slowly. He was 30 now, and in the prime of his legal career. In the years since Alicia's trial, he'd gone on to co-found a legal nonprofit called Justice Forward, a civil rights organization focused on wrongful convictions, youth advocacy, and police accountability. He had argued before appellate courts, testified before Congress, and trained a new generation of lawyers committed to justice. But somehow, this return to the beginning felt like the most meaningful milestone of all. When the moderator introduced him, the audience, lawyers, judges, students, and community leaders, rose to their feet in applause. Marcus stepped up to the podium, nodded in gratitude, and waited for the room to settle. "I want to thank you all for being here," he began, voice steady but warm. "And before we get into anything too formal, let me start with a story." He looked out at the crowd. "Many years ago, I stood in this very room, but I wasn't giving a speech. I wasn't invited. I was here as a teenager. Just a kid from a town most people had never heard of. I was told to stand, told to speak, and told, by a judge seated right where you're all looking now, that I didn't belong in this space. That I didn't understand the law. That I wouldn't amount to much." There were murmurs in the crowd, a few heads nodding slowly. I remember thinking that day, maybe he's right. Maybe people like me don't belong here. But I also remember my mother's voice, my mentor's encouragement, my community's strength. And most importantly, I remember the feeling of knowing that injustice, real, gut-wrenching injustice, had to be fought with more than just anger. It had to be fought with purpose. He paused. That moment didn't break me. It built me. Over the next half hour, Marcus wove his story into a broader reflection on the state of justice in America. How the legal system could be both a shield and a sword, how laws could uplift but also oppress, and how the people who enter this profession have a moral responsibility to use their voices for those who are silenced. He shared stories of clients he'd helped, some who walked free after years of wrongful incarceration, others who still waited for their day in court. He talked about legislation his nonprofit had helped pass, ending juvenile solitary confinement, expanding public defender funding, and requiring police body cams in every district across the state. But he also talked about the work still left to do. There are still too many young people, especially black and brown, who walk into courtrooms like this one and see a system that was never designed for them to win. We have to change that, not just through policy, but through presence. Through action. Through persistence. When he finished, the audience stood again. Many were visibly moved. Among them sat law students scribbling notes, young public defenders clapping with pride, and even seasoned judges wiping at their eyes. After the event, Marcus stepped outside to greet a group of students waiting to meet him. Among them was a quiet young man named Isaiah, who had driven 3 hours from a community college to attend the symposium. "Mr. Jefferson," Isaiah said, shaking his hand firmly, "I just want to say, your story, your presence, it means something. I've been thinking about dropping out of pre-law. But hearing you today, I changed my mind. I want to keep going." Marcus smiled deeply. "Then you should. And when it gets tough, and it will, you remember this, you belong in every room they tell you that you don't." Isaiah nodded, eyes wide with gratitude. Later that evening, Marcus returned to his office at Justice Forward. He stayed late, reviewing letters from incarcerated individuals seeking help. One stood out, handwritten on lined paper, addressed to Attorney Jefferson, asking for help with a wrongful conviction from 1996. Marcus recognized the case. He remembered it from law school research, one of those impossible files with years of ignored appeals and legal roadblocks. But now, with more experience and a bigger platform, he could do something about it. He placed the letter in a red folder labeled "Urgent" and leaned back in his chair. The city skyline glowed in the window behind him, a reminder that the fight never slept. Across the room, a photo sat on the shelf. It was from his law school graduation. Marcus stood proudly between Elena, his mother, and his younger sister, all beaming. He glanced at it now and felt the same warmth he had that day, pride, yes, but more than that, purpose. As midnight neared, Marcus shut off the desk lamp, picked up the red folder, and walked out into the night. The city was quiet, the streets damp with recent rain, and as he passed the courthouse once more, he stopped and looked up at the building that had once tried to define him. "I define me now," he whispered, then turned and kept walking, steady, calm, and sure. It was a quiet Thursday morning when Marcus received a letter at the Justice Forward office, no return address, no signature on the envelope, just his name written in neat cursive. His assistant, Carrie, handed it over with a curious look. It came by regular post, no tracking. "Kind of old school," she said, raising an eyebrow. Marcus nodded absently, placed the letter on his desk, and went back to reviewing a brief for a federal civil rights appeal. But the envelope kept pulling at his attention. There was something about the handwriting, something familiar. After finishing the paragraph he was reading, he finally gave in and opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, ivory-colored and typed in crisp black ink. The header was unmistakable: Office of the Honorable Judge Harold Thompson, retired. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. He hadn't seen or heard of Thompson in years, not since that courtroom day when he'd stood as a scared, disrespected teen, mocked for daring to think he had a place in the legal world. That moment had changed everything. It had fueled his ambition, driven his sense of justice, and propelled him all the way to where he stood now. And yet, even with all that growth, Marcus had never forgotten the judge's face. Or his voice. He began reading. "Mr. Jefferson. I doubt you expected to ever hear from me again. Perhaps you hoped you wouldn't. I am writing you today not out of obligation or guilt, though I feel both in abundance. I am writing because I've followed your career. Quietly, from the sidelines. I saw your name in a headline years ago. Civil rights attorney wins landmark case in wrongful conviction, and recognized it instantly. At first, I was shocked. Not because you succeeded, but because I remembered how I tried to make you feel small. I remember the look in your eyes. I remember the strength you had not to lash out, not to cry. That courtroom was mine back then. I thought it gave me power. But power doesn't come from robes or gavels. It comes from integrity, from service, from truth. And in truth, I failed you. I watched your career grow with great discomfort, at first with bitterness, then confusion, and finally, respect. You turned what should have broken you into a platform. You turned mockery into purpose. I retired 5 years ago. Partly by choice, partly from pressure I won't deny. I had become outdated in more ways than one, and some of my decisions were being re-evaluated under scrutiny. Rightfully so. Since then, I've spent a lot of time reflecting. On my judgments, on the system I served, and on people like you. What you've done, Mr. Jefferson, is not just impressive, it's redemptive. Not for me, but for the system. You've reminded people that justice isn't reserved for the privileged few. You've forced us, me, to look in the mirror. I won't ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that your success matters to more people than you realize. Even to the ones who once stood in your way. I wish you continued courage. The world needs more of it. Harold Thompson. Marcus sat frozen, the letter trembling slightly in his hands. The air in the room felt heavier, as if history had suddenly walked through the door and taken a seat across from him. He hadn't expected this, hadn't needed it. He'd moved on. Or so he thought. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. The judge's words weren't absolution. They didn't erase the pain or the memory. But they meant something. Not because they validated Marcus, but because they marked change. Proof that the system, however flawed, was capable of evolving. That even those who once upheld injustice could recognize the need for something better. Marcus placed the letter back in its envelope and slid it into the top drawer of his desk. He didn't respond. Not because he didn't know what to say, but because sometimes silence carried its own message. The work would speak louder. That weekend, Marcus visited his mother. They sat on the porch of her modest but well-kept home in Cedarville, sipping iced tea and watching the sun dip behind the trees. She noticed something different in his expression, something quieter. "What's on your mind, baby?" she asked gently. Marcus hesitated, then pulled the letter from his bag and handed it to her. She read it slowly, carefully, her eyes narrowing at first, then softening. When she finished, she folded it neatly and set it in her lap. "He saw you," she said finally. "It took him too long, but he saw you. And he knew what you were made of." "I didn't need it," Marcus said quietly. "No, you didn't. But it still matters. Not for your ego, for your soul. It means the work is reaching people, even the hard ones. Maybe especially them." Marcus nodded. "I just hope we're reaching the kids who come after. That they don't have to be humiliated to be heard." His mother smiled sadly. "Every generation moves the line forward. You pushed it farther than most." Later that night, as Marcus prepared to head back to the city, he stopped by the high school gym where he once gave his first public speech. It was empty now, dimly lit, the bleachers folded back, the basketball hoop still hanging in the silence. He walked slowly across the floor, remembering the boy he used to be, timid, determined, angry, hopeful. That boy had carried pain and purpose in equal measure. That boy still lived in him. He took a seat on the center court, alone in the quiet. The echo of sneakers on wood from years past whispered in his memory. And in that stillness, Marcus let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding for a long time. He didn't need apologies. He didn't need recognition. What he needed, and what he had, was peace. Not the kind that comes from having all the answers, but the kind that comes from knowing you're walking the path you were meant to walk. The path of justice. Of service. Of truth. He stood, walked to the exit, and turned out the light behind him. Marcus Jefferson's story was never just about proving someone wrong. It was about proving what's possible, when a single voice refuses to be silenced, when a community lifts up its own, and when the fire of injustice sparks a lifetime of purpose. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?